Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, 11a of Maseches Brachos. We're at the bottom of the page, the Mishnah 4 lines from the bottom. The Mishnah says, B'shachar mevarich shtayim lefanea ve'achas le'acharel. In the morning, when you say Shema, there are 2 brachos before and 1 bracha afterwards. Uba'erev, and in the evening, mevarich shtayim lefaneha ushtayim le'achareha. You have 2 before and 2 after. So, in the morning, you have 2 before and 1 after, so that's 3. And in the evening, you have 2 before and 2 after, that's 4 more. For a total of 7. Rashi says that the Yerushalmi says that there's a pasuk in Tehillim, Sheva b'yom halalticha, that each day I will praise you with 7, and that's why there's 7 brachos altogether before and after Kriya Shema. Now, we said that in the evening there are 2 before and 2 after. The Mishnah says, Achas arucha ve'achas kitzara. Of the 2 that are after, 1 is a long bracha and 1 is a short bracha. Now, makom she'amru laharich eino rashai lekatzer. A place where the Chachamim said you need a long bracha, then you cannot have a short bracha. And lekatzer, and if they said that it should be short, eino rashai laharich, then it cannot be a long bracha. Lachtom, a place where they said that there should be a chasima at the end, baruch. Again, that you come back and say baruch again. So then, in Rishai Shalol Lachtom, you're not allowed to not have a chasima, not have a concluding baruch. Chasima is like a sealing. You can't seal as in S-E-A-L, that you have to seal it at the end, by going back and saying Baruch again at the end. And Shalol Lachtom, but a place where you don't have a chasima at the end, you don't seal it again at the end, which is usually a short bracha, in a Rishai Lachtom, so then you would not be allowed to add a chasima in at the end. Okay. Says the Gemara, Mai mevarich. What bracha do you make? It's going back to the morning. In the morning, before Shema, what bracha do you make? So, we said there are 2 before, and it will get to what's the second one, but for now the question is, of the 2 that you say before Shema at Shachris in the morning, what is the first bracha? Says the Gemara, Amar Reb Yaakov, Amar Reb Oshia, top of the next page, Yotzer Or Uvarei Choshech. The first bracha is that he forms light and creates darkness. Now that is a pasuk in Yeshaya. It's borrowed from a pasuk in Yeshaya, verse in Yeshaya. And the Gemara asks, V'lema yotzer or v'ari noga. Why do we say that he forms a light and creates darkness? We should say he forms light and creates noga. Noga is like shining, brightness. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Kidekasiv kamrina. We say like the pasuk. It's a pasuk in Yeshaya, Yotzer or Bari Choshech. He forms light and creates darkness. That's the bracha that we say. So why are you asking? We should say, instead of saying he creates darkness, we should say he creates brightness. So the Gemara explains what the question was. Ella me'ata. So if that's the case that we want to say like it says in the pasuk, so then why, in the continuation of the bracha, do we say, Oseh Shalom Uvarei Esakol? Why do we say, the bracha we say in the morning is, Yotzer Or Uvarei Choshech, Oseh Shalom, he makes peace, Uvarei Esakol, he creates everything. Says the Gemara, that's not what it says in the pasuk. If you look in that pasuk in Yeshaya, it says, Yotzer Or Uvarei Choshech, Oseh Shalom, he makes peace, Uvarei Ra, and he creates evil. So, do we say that like it says in the pasuk? Ela ksivra. It says in the pasuk that he creates evil, he creates bad. Vikarinan hakol. Instead we say he creates everything. Now, including everything is bad, but we don't want to say bad lishna malya. We want to say a nicer language. So hachanami. So our question is, why not to say the same thing for the beginning of the bracha? Lema noga lishna malya. Instead of saying he creates darkness, say he creates noga. He creates brightness, which is a nicer language. Okay, now I'm wondering if noga would refer to brightness that you see at night, like the brightness of the stars, because when you say hakol, you are including bad. But if you say noga, are you including darkness in that? So I'm wondering if maybe you are, and that's the Gemara's question, is don't say the word darkness, say noga, which is brightness within darkness, but that implies darkness too, perhaps. Anyways, either way, the Gemara answers, you know why we mentioned darkness specifically? Elamarava, k'dei lahaskir midas yom balayla u'midas layla bayom. Because we specifically want to mention the midah, the trait of daytime at night, and the trait of night at day. Now, this is an example of the trait of night at day. We say barit yotzer aravari choshech. In the daytime, in the morning, we say he forms light and creates darkness. So we don't want to say noga, we don't want to say brightness, because we want to mention the trait of night at day, and we want to mention the trait of day at night. Why? Why do we want to mention night at day and day at night? So Rabbeinu Yonah, Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah, students of Rabbeinu Yonah, they bring from another earlier source that the heretics say, or the idolaters say, that there was one creator for night and one creator for day. One creator of light, one creator of darkness. Two different creators. And it's even implied in the pasuk. Yotzer, he formed light, ubari choshech, and he created darkness. It's like two separate things. Perhaps one might have read the pasuk that way. So therefore, we mention it specifically, we want to mention it during the daytime, even during the daytime, we praise the same creator. You form light and create darkness, that shows that it's all the same creator for the night and the dark. The light and the dark, the day and the night. Okay. Now the Gemara asks, so Bishlam Amidas Laila Bayam Kedamringan. So we understand that we mention night at day, like we said, Yotzer or Vari Choshech. When we say in the morning that he creates darkness, that's mentioning the night. But but when do we mention day and night? Where in the bracha at nighttime do we mention the day? So Amar Abaye says, because we say Golel or mipnei choshech, nechoshech mipnei or. We say he rolls back light for dark and dark for light. So that's a mention of the daytime in the nighttime bracha. Okay, so that's with regards to the first bracha of the morning, the first of the two before Shema. Ve'idach mahi, what's the second bracha before Shema? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, avarabba. The bracha is avarabba, abundance of love, great love, avtanu, you loved us and gave us the Torah. V'chein ori le Rabbi Elazar le Rabbi Pedas, pray. And that's also what Rabbi Elazar taught his son Rabbi Pedas. Avarabba, that the second bracha is avarabba, abundance of love. Tanya nami hachi, we have another brisa that says this, in omrim avas olam, ela avarabba. Don't say avas olam, an eternal love, rather say avarabba, a great love. So that's the second bracha. Now, v'Rabbanan Amri, Avas Olam. The Rabbanan disagree, and they say, no, even in the morning we say Avas Olam. Now Nusach Ashkenaz says Avas Olam at Ma'ariv in the evening. In the morning we say Avarabba. Nusach Sfard, I believe, says Avas Olam, even at nighttime. So they paskin like the Rabbanan, but the general halacha is like the first opinion, that you don't say Avas Olam, rather you say Avarabba, but the Rabbanan say you say Avas Olam even in the morning. Chaygu Omer, and so it says, it's a pasuk in Yirmiyah, the Avas Olam Avtich, eternal love, I have loved you. King Mishachtich Chesed, therefore I pulled Chesed over you. I pulled kindness over you. Or I drew kindness for you. Okay, so we have different opinions about if the second in the morning bracha should be Avarabba or should be Avas Olam. Okay, Amar Bihuda Amar Shmuel, or Yehuda said the name of Shmuel, Hishkim Lishanos Ad Shelo Kara Kriya Shema Tzarech Levarech. Person gets up to learn, and they didn't say Shema yet. They need to make a Birkas HaTorah, a bracha before learning Torah. Mishakar Kriya Shema, but once you've read the Shema, Ein Tzarech Levarech, you no longer need to say a blessing on learning Torah, a Birkas HaTorah, Shekvar Niftar Be'Avarabba, because you already exempted yourself with the recitation of Avarabba. Avarabba, it contains thanks to Hashem for the Torah, and it suffices, potentially, it could suffice as Birkas HaTorah, and so if you want to learn before you say Shema, if you want to learn for the first time after you say Shema, then you don't need to make a bracha, the Gemara is saying. Practical halacha might be different, but the Gemara is saying that you don't need to make a bracha because you're already Yotzei Avarabba, you're already Yotzei Birkas HaTorah, making a blessing on Torah with Avarabba. Amar Rav Huna says, in general with regards to Birkas HaTorah, Lemikra tzarech levarech. If you're going to be learning psukim, reading verses from the Torah, or probably the Nevi'im and Ksuvim as well, if you're going to be reading verses, you need to make the bracha Birkas HaTorah. Ulemidrash ein tzarech levarech. But to darshan and to learn out from those verses, that does not require bracha, only if you're saying the verses themselves. Rabbi Lazar Amar, and Rabbi Lazar says, no, no, for Mikra, for Psukim and Midrash, which elaborates on those Psukim, you need to make a bracha. The Mishnah, the tradition, the oral tradition of Halacha, that you don't need to make a bracha. It doesn't have, it does have Psukim, which is going to be the response, but it's not Psukim. So only Psukim, only verses need Birkas HaTorah, but not Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Af Mishnah Nami Tzarech Levarech. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, even for Mishnah you need to make the bracha, because Mishnah involves interpreting verses in Torah. So he seems to agree that the Birkas HaTorah is over the is about the reading verses, and but involved in Mishnah is also reading verses and deriving the halacha from there. But for Gemara, which is explaining the Mishnah, elaborating on the Mishnah, questioning the Mishnah, that does not need a bracha. That was Rabbi Yochanan. V'Rava Amar af v'Talmud tzarech levarech. That even for Gemara, one needs to make a bracha. That's how we paskin. We make a bracha for all forms of learning Torah. The Amar of Chia bar Ashi, as Rav Chia bar Ashi explains, Zimnin sagiyang haba kaimna kamei derav, Wisnuye pirkin besafra debei Rav. I was sitting many times in front of Rav to learn our parak, our what we were learning from the Sifra Debei Rav, from these midrashim of Rav. Havamaktim kamashi yadeyu barech umasni lan pirkin. He would wash his hands, make the Birkas Torah, and then he would teach us. So you see that for Medrash you need Birkas Torah, and so too for other types of learning, it would seem. My bevarich. What bracha do you make? What is the Birkas HaTorah? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Asher Kiddushanu mitzvosav etzivanu la'asok b'divrei Sarah. That you say, he who sanctified us with his mitzvos and commanded us to involve ourselves in words of Torah. That's the bracha on learning Torah. Rabbi Yochanan Messiah Bahachim. Rabbi Yochanan, though, he would conclude and add on the following: Harevna Hashem Elkenos divrei sarasecha befinu. Hashem, you should make it sweet make the words of Torah sweet in our mouths, uvafipios amacha beis Yisrael, in the mouths of your whole nation Israel. V'niya anachnu v'tzetzainu v'tzetzei amcha beis Yisrael, and we and our descendants and all the descendants of Israel should be kulanu yodei shemecha, should all know your name. Ve'oskei Torasecha, and involved in your Torah. Baruch atah Hashem ha'melamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. Praised are you Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, who teaches Torah to the nation of Israel. So the add-on of Rabbi Yochanan is a whole beautiful bracha, which we say as part of our Birkas HaTorah, that not only do we say a bracha on the mitzvah of learning la'asok b'divrei Torah, but we then daven that the learning should be sweet and that it should continue within our descendants. And the conclusion, ha'melamed Torah le'amo Yisrael, the one who teaches, is in the present tense, that Hashem assists us when we try to learn Torah. The Rav Hamnuna says a different bracha. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. He who chose us from amongst all the nations, v'nasan lanu es Torah, and gave us his Torah. Baruch atah Hashem nosein haTorah. Blessed are you Hashem who gives the Torah. And okay, so Rav Hamnuna has a slightly different bracha. He who chose us from all the nations and gave us his Torah. Rav Hamnuna zuhi mu'ula sheba brachos. Rav Hamnuna says this is the best of the brachos. What makes it the best of the brachos? Rashi says it's the best of the brachos because it contains thanking Hashem and praising both the Torah and Israel. So this is the best. Hilkach, therefore, limrinu l'kul. The Gemara says to say them all. Say both, all three. It depends how you break it up, if it's two or three, but say all of it. Asher kiddushem suzav tzvana lasok b'divrei Torah, b'ha'arevna, and Asher bachar banu. Tanan Hasam. We learned in a Mishnah. This Mishnah is in Maseches Tamid, and it discusses the daily process in the Beis HaMikdash. So, Amar Lem HaMamuna, the assistant Kohen Gadol, would tell the Kohanim, he would tell them, Barchu bracha achas, make one bracha, so after this is talking about, Rashi explains that this is talking about in the middle of the avoda, in the middle of the daily service in the Beis HaMikdash, and after the Kohanim arranged the morning tamid on top of the ramp and salted them and got them ready to put on the Mizbeach, so then they would come down and read Shema, because they did this all very early in the morning. They would read Shema, and then we say that's when the Mamuna, the appointed assistant Kohen Gadol, would say, make one bracha, and they would make that one bracha, which we'll say what it is in a moment. So, Baruchu bracha achas, ve'im baruchu, they would do that, v'karu asar zadibros, and then they would read the 10 Commandments. That was part of the daily recitation. Shema v'haya im shamoa v'yomer u'baruchu es Hashem. So, Shema v'haya v'yomer and u'baruchu es ha'am, Gimel Brachos. And then they gave the nation 3 blessings, these Kohanim. Emes v'yatziv, the first blessing we say after Shema, that Hashem's words are emes, are true and standing and eternal. Va'avoda, and they would then make a bracha over the avoda. Ubirchas Kohanim, and they would say the blessing of the Kohanim. So they would say Emes v'yatziv, affirming their faith in Hashem. They would say the bracha of avoda, which is ritzei. Hashem, they just brought carbons. They say ritzei Hashem Elokeinu Zamcha Yisrael. Hashem should be desirous of our carbon. And then they would say, then they would bless the people. Birkas Kohanim. Uve Shabbos, and on Shabbos, Mosifim bracha achas lemishmar hayotzei. They would add one extra bracha for the mishmar that was leaving, because that's the day. Shabbos is when you have the changing of the guard in terms of who the Kohanim would be. And there was a bracha they would say for the mishmar hayotzei. For the mishmar, the group of Kohanim that was going off duty. Okay. So the Mishnah here said that the Mamuna, the assistant Kohen, the assistant Kohen Gadol, or the one in charge of them, would say, make one bracha. So ask the Gemara, my bracha achas, which bracha was he telling them to make? Kihad Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yossi bar Abba. It's like what happened with Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Yossi bar Abba. Iklo lahu asra. They went to a certain place. Bo minayu. They asked them. They would ask them. They asked them. Iklo lahu asra. Bo minayu my bracha achas. They asked the people there, what is this one bracha that's referred to in this Mishnah? Lo hava biyadayu, and the people didn't know. They came and they asked Rav Masna, what's this one bracha? And he didn't know. Asur Shailu Rav Yehuda. So they came and they asked Rav Yehuda, what's the one bracha mentioned in this Mishnah that the Kohanim would say? Amar Lahu. He said to them, Hachi Amar Shmuel Avarabba. The bracha was Avarabba. Ve'am Rabbi Zrika Am Rabbi Ami Am Rabbi Shimon Lakish Yotzerar. And he says it was Yotzerar. So we have a machokas, we have a dispute. The one bracha that they would say in the morning before Shema. Again, the Kohanim, they got the first morning offering ready. Then they went. The Mishnah said that, or they were told, make one bracha. What's that one bracha? We have a dispute here. One opinion says it's Avarabba, the great love that Hashem has in giving us the Torah. The other one says Yotzer Or Bari Choshech. It's the bracha regarding how Hashem creates all the light and the darkness and all the luminaries. Okay, we will resume from here, Be'ezus Hashem, next time.